No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 345. An Islamist takeover of the streets of Britain as the elite class ignore growing warnings that civil war is now inevitable. And if the dangerous woke liberal losers on the hard left think they're allied with this mob, then they've got another thing coming.
There's no need for that. We're on the same side, bro. No, we're not. Yes, we are, bro.
The scenes being roundly ignored by the MSM are horrendous and represent a breakdown in British society.
Yeah, well, they're running down now. Yeah, so as you can tell, quite comedically, so I've just been beamed in the face.
Oh, women! Save our kids!
Oh, shit! Just chucked more.
Danny, what was it in the bottle?
It was piss. It went all over me.
I thought it was.
And there's clear two-tier justice after Narinder Kaur defied police orders, yet was not arrested.
I want her arrested. She is a member of Stand Up to Racism, and she is in the exclusion zone. Arrest her!
I'll show you the Islamist takeover of our streets in my digest next, as the Labour government is mired in crisis over the manhunt of Hadush Kebatu, collapse of the rape gang inquiry amid Sadiq Khan's cover-up, and appointment of hard-left Starmer hater Lucy Powell as the party's new deputy leader. Then, the best analysis we saw them there, our husband and wife duo, the Hamiltons, broadcaster and author Christine, and former Tory minister and ex-UKIP leader Neil. Also coming up on the show today, the Prime Minister wades into the Sarah Pochin racism scandal, even though the Reform UK MP is literally telling the truth about the representation of black and Asian people in ads. Axed Mike Graham is replaced by his best friend on talk as Mark Dolan kicks off a public campaign to replace him. And King Charles disgracefully blames the late Queen Elizabeth II for the Prince Andrew scandal as the disgraced Duke and his wife Fergie demand 2 new mansions from the monarchy as this royal crisis deepens. Then, of course, we've got the uncancelled after show over on Substack. And we're looking into Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's bizarre Halloween stunt, which aims to dispel the growing rumours surrounding the troubled Sussex family. But has it worked? We're going to team up with the Royal News Network. That is after the main show over on Substack, www.outspoken.live, if you want to watch there. We'll also reveal the first Greatest Britain and Union Jackass of the week by the end of the show. All chosen by you, and you can vote for the worst Britain in the world today right now in our live chat on YouTube. Here are your nominees. Lucy Powell, nominated by Thomas W3033, who says she was sacked about a month ago for not being good enough to be in the cabinet. She is now the deputy leader of the Labour Party. All you need to know, really. David Lammy, nominated by Kaz Quinn for the weekend game of Where's Kebab. When will they actually become accountable for their disastrous go at leading? And Where's Streeting, nominated by Darren Donaldson, who says he went for Reform MP Sarah Pochin after her observations about the UK advert diversity. Meanwhile, he has previously threatened to murder others on social media. Another Labour Party hypocrite. So 3 Labour big beasts for you to choose from today. Let me know your comments throughout the show. I will reveal the winner and deliver your feedback before we go today. So do stay with us. But now, let's go. We cannot look away for another moment. The MSM and elite class might pretend civil war isn't close, but the scenes on the streets of East London and Southampton over the weekend suggest it's already here. Islamists are attempting a takeover as our politicians and police look the other way. Gurmit Singh of Urban Scoop said, well, others were too afraid to. This is the only threat to society we need to be concerned about. Nicole Lampard observed, UKIP wasn't allowed to march in Tower Hamlets, but these guys, dressed as terrorists, were. And Adam Brooks made the abundantly fair point, let's be honest now. If a group of right-leaning white men, 60 to 70 men, dressed in militia-style outfits and covered their faces on a protest, the headlines the next day would be of a far-right group or threat. But this won't even make the papers, in my opinion. Well, it didn't make the papers. It didn't make the news bulletins. So I'm now going to show you the sectarian takeover of the UK in what used to be the heart of working-class Cockney East London.
Specifically targeting Islam. They said, we're coming on a crusade. They said that we need to take back our streets. So my brothers, this is a show of unity that the brothers have mentioned. Even if they don't come today, we stand firm to let them know that if you come, anytime, we will stand firm. Anytime. And we will be ready to defend our masajid, to defend our elders, to defend our women, to defend our community. We're not the ones saying we're going to come on a crusade. We're going into your areas to cause you problems. You're coming into our homes, and you want to cause us problems. What's wrong with us standing up for our legitimate right? Today's not a day about who's from what ends, what options here, who you got a problem with. Today is a day when you unite upon La ilaha illallah. Muhammad Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah. Takbir. Allahu Akbar.
What's going on, my people? As you can see, I'm live and direct here with all the brothers behind me. It's the beginning of the turnout. What, a few hundred of the brothers? Everyone's ready. Here, not for violence or hate. They're here to stand ground on our own area, which is Tower Hamlets.
On our own area. Perhaps it was this one video that summed up most how the dangerous woke liberal losers of the hard left, who think they're allied with this mob, have got another thing coming. The Mercian pointed out the exchange. Liberal, we're on the same side, bruv. Muslim, no, we're not. Liberal, yes, we are. The right tried to warn liberals and they hated us for it. Their eventual grovelling apology should never be accepted. Watch for yourself.
No need for that. We're on the same side, bro. No, we're not. Yes, we are, bro.
They're not on your side, you stupid idiot. They hate gay men. They hate women. They are not on your side. As Lawrence Fox said, Britain is heading for civil war. The Islamists will not need the support of useful idiot leftists for much longer. In fact, they will be the first to be purged if history is anything to go by. Just want to show you that video again, because it really is so extraordinary.
No need for that. We're on the same side, bro. No, we're not. Yes, we are, bro.
As the MSM obsess over trying to describe Reform UK MP Sarah Pochin as racist for stating the facts about anti-white racist advertising in the UK, Nigel Farage today tried to turn the attention to those scenes in East London.
Well, you know, you raised that point. And if you really want to talk about racism over the weekend, then, you know, whilst I've already said I thought Sarah's comments were ugly and out of place, they're not intentioned to be deeply unpleasant, there was proper racism happening in Tower Hamlets over the weekend. But no one's asked a question about that until you. None of the broadcasters are even interested in that, and I doubt they'll show the pictures. Yeah, outright intimidation to the point of sort of basically urging the mass wipeout of huge numbers of Jewish people. I have to say, Noah, I thought the scenes of those men, in many cases masks on, women brushed aside, not welcome to be any part of it, I actually think it's one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in my whole life. And what a telling moment. The leftist stand up to racism were there with their banners. And one says to one of these mass marchers, "We're on the same side." To which the response comes, "No, we're not." Maybe one day the deluded left will wake up to realise they've been with very strange bedfellows. Organisations like Queers for Palestine spring to mind pretty quickly. No, I thought the scenes were absolutely terrifying. It was like a foreign invading army marching through our streets, and I defy anyone in this room to tell me that's wrong. I really, genuinely do.
A foreign invading army, I completely agree. And remember, those Islamist protests in Whitechapel were allowed to go ahead, even though the UKIP march was banned and moved to central London, when Narinder Kaur of the opposing Stand Up to Racism group turned up, ignoring police orders. As UKIP leader Nick Tanconi put it, Narinder Kaur breached the Section 14 placed onto the Stand Up to Racism rabble. The Met Police failed to arrest her. Had we entered Tower Hamlets, we would have undoubtedly been arrested. The Met must arrest Narinder to prove they are not two-tiered. Watch what happened.
Narinder, there's a Section 12 or Section 14 in place. As a member of Stand Up to Racism, you're breaking the law. You're not allowed to be here, Narinder. No, the law enforcement have said you aren't welcome to be here. I want her arrested. She is a member of Stand Up to Racism and she is in the exclusion zone. Arrest her! Arrest her! Arrest her! Arrest her! Arrest her! If I was to go to Whitechapel now, I would be arrested. Stand Up to Racism have a Met Police authorisation. They are not allowed in this zone. Narinder Kaur, arrest her!
And they didn't. Which is just all the proof that we need of two-tier Britain, isn't it? Now, Narinder's race-baiting and attention-seeking, purposefully stoking violence that saw actually no evidence or action from the police. She posted, "They were chanting, 'Get Narinder off our streets.' So funny. Love how they were more interested in me than little Nick from UKIP. They tried to get me arrested but managed to just get the police to protect me. Thank you." Watch.
We have to resist in whatever.
So I am here at Hyde Park and with the Stand Up Against Racism. We're protesting against UKIP, but they're making arrests of peaceful protesters. I actually don't know why they're arresting. Just women standing there arresting them. Apparently we're not allowed to be here, but UKIP, a far-right group, are allowed to march, but we've got to get lost.
But these were not peaceful protests. In fact, the hard left mob showed their true colours with this attack on young Bob of Turning Point UK.
Yeah, well, they're running down now. Yeah, so as you can tell, quite comedically, so I've just been beamed in the face for no reason. It was a family, her mother was encouraging it, and I think this is the generation that we're raising. The fact is that people genuinely believe that the next generation of fascists are marching down to Marble Arch for no reason whatsoever beyond the fact that they disagree with them. I think the divisiveness on the left is more in line with the fascists of 1940s Germany than, of course, the right are. I think we're incredibly civil. We're the ones who kind of evolved civil discourse, but unfortunately, these people here are violent dogs. Beans, that's just a waste of food, and considering the left talk about wealth inequality, I majorly appreciate that fact.
On Sunday, the left-wing hate mob moved to Southampton, where Nick Tanconi was targeted for continuing his campaign against the Islam takeover.
Patriots, who opposes our message? Anti-extremism, anti-Islamism and anti-communism. Who opposes our message? These people, communists, those subversives who want Britain shut down. These people must go. Islamists, invaders and the communists who dare call us racists and Nazis. These people want open borders. They've got to go home. Patriotic rage. Southampton, ready to kick off. These people, they've got to go.
As young Bob reporting from the scene pointed out, a left-wing agitator hurled a bottle of piss at the Southampton Patriots. When Danny Tomo tried to chase down the thug, he was pepper sprayed and then another beer can was thrown. This is what the left calls peaceful protest. Watch this horrifying urine attack on Tommy Robinson ally, Danny.
Danny, what was it in the bottle?
It was piss. It went all over me.
I thought it was. He said it went all over him.
So let's be clear what's going on. Paul Embry has put it powerfully. This is the Northern Islandization of British politics. There are emerging and striking parallels between events in the province and on the mainland. As he writes, the status quo has failed. Our country is slowly underdeveloping. Everyone knows it. The economy is shattered. Public services are broken. Our borders are being overrun. And our infrastructure is in a state of disrepair. We don't build anything and we don't make anything. Meanwhile, there is a deepening sense of social disintegration in our communities. The air of decline permeates our land, and with it comes an increasing awareness that if radical change of the economic, social, and cultural kind doesn't come about quickly, it may be too late. As events in Northern Ireland proved, no party, not even ones that have dominated the political scene for so long, are immune from the wrath of the voters. Sometimes the collapse is quick and unexpected. Throw in the flags and rise of communal sectarianism, and the emerging parallels between politics in Britain and the province become starker yet. We could well be facing the Northern Islandization of Britain in more ways than one. And think all this was going on this weekend amid complete and utter chaos and incompetence as this Labour government set free the country's most infamous sex offender, Hadush Kebatu, the epping illegal migrant who caused all of this summer unrest outside migrant hotels in circumstances, by the way, that I simply do not believe. But it was disgusting. The whole thing was disgusting. As Adam Brooks revealed, the family of the 14-year-old victim were not even told that this scumbag who is in prison or was in prison for sexually assaulting their daughter was on the loose. Watch.
So the father of the
14-year-old that was sexually assaulted in June has asked me to read this statement personally from him. As a father, I am completely broken that the man who sexually assaulted my 14-year-old daughter just 4 months ago was accidentally released from prison onto the streets again. The trauma and torment my daughter has suffered since this assault has really hurt myself and my family. She was slowly starting to get some of her confidence back and has recently started seeing her closest friends and been back in school. Friday's news has caused her so much stress and anxiety, she feared seeing him again in the high road and him recognising her. I'm really worried for my daughter's mental health and well-being because of this assault. This man is a real danger to young women and children, and for him to be wrongly released and walking the streets freely just 4 months after carrying out 2 sexual assaults, only 5 weeks after being sentenced, all because of a system failure on Friday, is unbelievably irresponsible. Myself and my family feel massively let down and infuriated by HMP Chelmsford, the police, the justice system and our Labour government. They have all failed.
As you should. It was an absolute disgrace. And do you think I believe the official version of events provided by David Lammy? Like hell I do. Yet still the lefties took the wrong stand.
I just think it's terribly uncharitable. And look, there are going to be some bad eggs. That's just indisputable. And we're seeing one of them escaping prison today. But the vast majority of them, chances are going to be people escaping horrible situations that are completely unimaginable to any of us who are lucky enough to be born in Britain. And I think we need a degree of compassion towards those people to do the right thing, process their claims. If they are successful, to integrate them in society, and if they are not successful, to move them on elsewhere.
Okay, my compassion, I have to say, is with the 14-year-old girl that was assaulted by this person. If you are joining us now, it is...
Correct, Dawn Neeson. As Liz Kershaw said, it's so easy to be a migrant hugger when you're too posh to be affected by their crimes. And we all know something must change.
Was accidentally released by the authorities. The police have finally found him. Starmer says that he is appalled that this vile sex offender was loose on our streets. That's odd, because thanks to Starmer's own reforms, sex offenders like this will never go to jail in the first place. There will be hundreds of Kebatus, and they'll be coming to a street near you.
But the scandal of these migrant hotels just gets worse today. As Ross Clark reported, if we haven't already passed a watershed of public opinion on the issue of illegal migration, today's report into the growing scandal of asylum hotels is surely it. The report by the Commons Home Affairs Committee condemns the Home Office's failed, chaotic and expensive system of housing migrants in asylum hotels, the cost of which was allowed to soar from 4.5 billion to 15.3 billion as a result of poorly negotiated contracts and, in one case, a failure to collect £46 million of revenue it was due under a profit-sharing arrangement. Total incompetence and corruption. Yet Labour has now elected this woman to replace Angela Rayner as deputy leader. This woman, Lucy Powell, who you should remember dismissed the Pakistani Muslim rape gang scandal as a racist dog whistle.
All the documentary on Channel 4 about rape gangs over this.
We want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Yeah. Okay,
there was a real issue.
Let's get that dog whistle out, shall we? Yeah.
I think Lucy Powell is a repeat offender where this sort of thing is concerned. I mean, there was a set to she had with Andrew Neil on what was then the Daily Politics, just in the wake of the Manchester Arena bomb. She's a Manchester MP, and he just asked a straight question, you know, how bad is the problem of Islamist extremism in Manchester?
How serious is the problem of Islamist radicalisation in Manchester?
Well, I'm not sure that this is the right moment to totally go into that, because I don't even want to ascribe what has happened to the Islam faith.
She basically tells him off. She says that we shouldn't be pointing the fingers at any particular community, which is a repulsive response to one of the most horrendous Islamist attacks we've ever seen. But also, frankly, dim. She obviously didn't even know what the word Islamist meant.
Yeah.
She obviously didn't even realise that he wasn't pointing the finger at ordinary British Muslims in Manchester or anywhere else. He was talking about the most deadly terror threat that we face then, now, and for many years. There's that, herself, many members of the Labour Party, sort of on a CV level, seem very impressive. But just aside from holding all the prejudices and the towards ordinary people, the willful blindness towards crimes like the grooming gangs, they're also just incredibly thick.
So when Starmer posted after her appointment, "Congratulations, Lucy Powell, Labour's newly elected deputy leader. Lucy has always been a proud defender of Labour values, and that is exactly what we need at this moment. Together we will fight for Britain for decency and national renewal." I was able to ratio him with the very simple reply, "You just sacked her, FFS. Does an honest word ever come out of your mouth?" But I know the answer to that. We all know the answer to that. And it's the lies from Labour, which is why there has been no reckoning over Sadiq Khan's revolting rape gang cover-up in London, as police are set to reopen 9,000 cases. Yes, you heard that right, 9,000. As survivor Sammy Woodhouse put it, Sadiq Khan should be on criminal charges. Susan Hall, his Tory rival, has now called for him to stand down.
Questioning the mayor and the deputy mayor about rape gangs in London. You all saw that the mayor says, "I don't know what she's talking about. What does she mean?" Well, all of you knew what I meant, and I suspect he did. But trying to get information out of him and the Metropolitan Police, and definitely the deputy mayor, has been so difficult. But we now see that the Met are investigating 9,000 cases of grooming gangs, or rape gangs as I call them. 9,000. So from going in January, when I first started all these questions, when he said he didn't know what I mean, we're now seeing that they're admitting to at least 9,000 cases. I'm not surprised, because so many very brave victims or survivors have actually contacted me, telling me their terrible stories. So at least it's out there, and now they admit to it. But why did it take so long? Sadiq Khan is the Police and Crime Commissioner. He's the Mayor of London. What a damn disgrace he is. He is not worthy of that position.
He's not. He is a disgrace. He should go. But of course, so should Jess Phillips. Because we now know that the entire grooming gang inquiry has been corrupted. Thanks to this woman. Farage has today suggested it's replaced by a parliamentary court.
It will happen in the full glare of media. And it won't take years to conclude. It will take many weeks. It might take a couple of months, but so be it. And it will have the power to put in the Palace of Westminster those who are suspected of colluding in the cover-up of one of the most shameful stories in the history of our islands. And I'll be putting all of that to the Speaker tomorrow, and I hope and expect to get other figures in public life to come out and support this idea. It can happen quickly. Let's make it happen.
But Labour will not allow it to happen. Dan Hodges summed up the week for this government. This week, the government's failure to find a solution to the Maccabee ban was then overshadowed by the revelation a small boat migrant had returned after less than a month, which in turn was overshadowed by the collapse of the rape gang inquiry, which in turn was overshadowed by Labour's collapse in Wales, which in turn was overshadowed by the conclusive proof Starmer lied over China, which in turn has been overshadowed by the revelation the Epping sex offenders are on the loose. 1 week. 1 week. This cannot go on. Now, let me bring in the superstar panel. Christine and Neil Hamilton with me now. Neil, those scenes on the streets of East London, over the weekend, Nigel Farage has described as being like watching an invading army. How can you see that and say that it doesn't look like the start of sectarianism, that it doesn't look like the start of a civil war, quite frankly?
Well, I've been confidently expecting this development for the last 50-odd years, ever since Enoch Powell's so-called Rivers of Blood speech in 1968 predicted this would be the inevitable development of mass migration of population groups with very different backgrounds and cultures and aspirations from what was then our indigenous population in the United Kingdom. What happens when groups get to a certain proportion in a particular area is that they vie for domination of that area. And this has been developing because our great cities have now, to a great extent, ceased to be what we might at one time have thought recognizably English, until they become effective outposts of foreign cultures of the countries from which these populations ultimately derive. And the sectarianism which this brings about, where group identity matters more than national identity, is exactly what Paul Embry referred to in respect of Northern Ireland, with tragic consequences there. And this can only get worse, actually, with migration being completely uncontrolled as it is now, and also with growing Islamicization or Islamization of the country. And you see on the streets there where politicized Islam is now standing up, as you say, to the idiot lefties who think that they're all on the same side. They'll be the first victims of the revolution, of course, as the middle class liberals in revolutionary France after 1789 went to the guillotine in short order as soon as the true revolutionaries got in control. I'm afraid, unless the country wakes up and unless our political class is booted out hook, line and sinker of Parliament, and we make the necessary changes to migration law and also human rights law and try to somehow reverse the tide, then we're going to face the complete breakup of our society, certainly in our great cities, if not in the wider countryside. And these scenes are becoming increasingly commonplace and is absolutely horrifying.
And Christine, Narinder Kaur turned up against the Section 14 from the police, remembering that UKIP had been banned from being able to march in Whitechapel, and yet she was not arrested. So it feels like total two-tier justice.
Absolutely. I mean, Narinder has not yet recovered from not being able to do Strictly because they didn't want her, because people don't like her. She's a massive... Well, it's true. That's why she wasn't on Strictly. She's not the sort of person they want. She's a massive attention seeker. She did all that completely deliberately. She would have known she wasn't going to be arrested. Honestly, Dan, I've been sitting here in getting more and more... Well, I'm not shocked anymore, but I mean, those scenes on the streets of London, for goodness sake, of masked people in a semi-paramilitary apparel, I mean, it is absolutely horrific. What the hell has happened to the England that I grew up in and the England that anybody of our vintage, not yours, Neil's and my vintage, remember? It's being taken over, and as Neil said, this has been happening. We've got to, it's all, I'm afraid I take a very defeatist attitude that it's too late. They're here. And unless we're going to deport tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, they're here, they're going to outbreed us, and they are more determined than the average Brit to impose their values and their culture on us. I mean, it's our country, for heaven's sake.
I mean, look
at that picture on the scene. Just look at that.
No police either. No police. So in Tower Hamlets, this mob are able to shut down the streets and run absolutely rampant with no police presence whatsoever, because there is a two-tier society and the elite class are just nodding this through. Neil, I've got to ask you, though, about the reaction from Narinder Kaur, because that felt like a purposeful attempt to race bait. And obviously you were the former leader of UKIP and you're still the honorary president, I believe, of UKIP. And she is there purposefully trying to bait your party, which has already been forced not to march in Whitechapel.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely disgraceful. It is an example of two-tier policing, quite a spectacular example, in fact. She deliberately went and put herself in that position, knowing that she was in breach of the law, and there were the police standing around, all around her, knowing that she was in breach of the law, but failing to move a muscle to do anything about it. I mean, to an extent, obviously, she's an irritating sort of blood vessel rather than anything more serious than that. But her deliberate provocation was designed, I suppose, to show up the fact of two-tier policing, as if to say, we rule the streets and we can do what we like, but you, so-called far right, not that UKIP is far right, of course, can't. So what we're seeing here actually is a form of censorship imposed upon people like us by people who wholly don't really believe in free speech at all, with the covert or perhaps overt support of the arms of the establishment that should be there to ensure that the law prevails and people's liberties will be protected. That isn't happening on our streets in increasing examples of this kind. And eventually, of course, more and more people like you and me are going to get angrier and angrier. And so the kind of civil disorder that I was talking about at the beginning of this segment of the programme is going to become a bigger and bigger problem for civil society. We're seeing the breakdown of civil society in this country. It was entirely predicted over half a century ago, and it's happening now before our very eyes.
The elite class want to completely try and distract from the real issues. And so, of course, if you've been following the mainstream media over the weekend, you would think, no, it's not a problem that there are these Islamist hate marches on the streets of East London. It's not a problem that civil war seems to be coming. The biggest issue in the United Kingdom, according to the MSM and the elite class and the ruling Labour Party, is the fact that Reform UK MP Sarah Pochin went on Talk TV and admitted the truth about what has become the overrepresentation of Black and Asian people in advertising in the United Kingdom. These are facts. They might be uncomfortable facts. Maybe Sarah Pochin didn't even express these facts in the most artful manner. But who cares? She is telling the truth. We have a 4% Black population in the United Kingdom. Over 50% of our ads, according to a recent Channel 4 survey, feature Black people. That's ludicrous. That is not what is meant by diversity. It's social engineering. And so, unlike the rest of the mainstream media, which has just shown you the tiny little clip of Sarah Pochin, I want to show you this full conversation in context, because the context matters. And the people who are calling her racist, which we'll come to shortly, are purposefully taking her out of context to stoke a culture war, and it pisses me off. So watch the full conversation, which was a honest debate, or an honest conversation, I guess you'd say, with a listener on Talk TV. Watch this.
The representation of the demographics of TV and public advertising, because we're getting to the point now where adverts don't represent what this country looks like, and actually positive demonisation of white people, just portrayed as criminals or inadequate when they're not portrayed anywhere else. Now, the reason why this is important, we got a case of art imitates life, because we're getting to the point where a number of my friends think that we're being discriminated like in employment markets, because white men are seen as useless and whatever and just invisible. And there's one financial institution which coincidentally uses a strikingly similar image of Nigel in their advertising for an incompetent, useless, arrogant white male. I just wondered if that's something Reform would look into.
Okay, Stuart, stay where you are. Sarah, what do you think of what Stuart's saying? What would Reform UK do about it, if anything?
I think Stuart's absolutely right. Drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of, people that basically are anything.
What's wrong with that,
than
Sarah?
white.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it doesn't reflect our society, and I feel that your average white person, average white family is like I agree with you, Stuart, not represented anymore in TV.
There are lots of white people on television, Sarah, or they're not. There are lots of white people. There are lots of white men. There are lots of white women.
We're talking about adverts, and how many times do you look at a TV advert and you think there's not a single white person on it? And actually it is. It's something that's happened because, I believe, of the woke liberati that goes on inside, this sort of like in the arty-farty world. When it comes to, northern towns like Runcorn that I represent, it's just not representative of the rest of the country. Might be fine inside the M25, but it's definitely not representative of the rest of the country. And actually, you know what, I'm hearing this more and more, people notice and people will switch off.
Yes, they will. Sarah Pochin said nothing wrong. What the mainstream media have done have taken that one tiny clip and decontextualised it to try and make a point that she is racist. It's not racist. Let me tell you, if you went to Namibia and there were 50% white people in Namibia, or you went to Japan and there were over 50% of white people in ads, no one would say it was racist for a Japanese politician to say, well, we should have more Japanese people in these ads. I'm sick of seeing the white people because we are a 95% Japanese country. But what happens in this country is the elite class immediately run to racism, even some people who should know better. Dan Hodges posted immediately after this, I think this is the most overtly racist thing I think I've ever seen from a sitting member of parliament. Tim Montgomery, who's meant to be on her team, said, I don't think Sarah's remarks were racist, but she was definitely guilty of political malpractice. No, she wasn't. She was telling the truth. But of course, the hostage video apology then came because Nigel Farage was furious. Sarah had to write, my comments on a Talk TV phone-in earlier today were phrased poorly, and I unreservedly apologise for any offence caused, which was not my intention. The point I was making is that many British TV adverts have gone DEI mad and are now underrepresented of British society as a whole. Sarah, we understood. We knew exactly what you were doing. But of course, it's little desperate weasel liars like Wes Streeting who are actually hypocrites and anti-white racists who have tried to cash in on this. Look at what he had to say, putting on faux outrage on LBC.
What she said was a total disgrace. There is no explanation for what she said other than her words were racist. Now, she might be embarrassed by her racism now, but the least she can do is admit it and apologise for it. And as a country, we cannot allow what has been, I think, one of the most successful multi-faith, multicultural countries in the world to slide back to the days where people walk down the street afraid of being abused or attacked because of what they look like or who they worship. That is not who we are. That is not the kind of country we are, and we're not going back there. But we will only be able to confront and defeat this racism if we're prepared to call it out and if the vast majority of decent people are prepared to face it down and not be bystanders. She should be utterly ashamed of herself. And the deafening silence from her own party leadership show that Reform UK cannot be trusted to govern this country because they think our country's flag belongs to only some of us rather than all of us.
No, you should be ashamed, Wes Streeting. You should be ashamed. You're the one trying to stoke a race war. And guess who followed up with it today? Starmer. Yep, Starmer has gone there too. Watch.
Shocking racism. And it's the sort of thing that will tear our country apart. And it tells you everything about reform. And Nigel Farage has got some questions to answer because either he doesn't consider it racist, which in my view is shocking in itself, or he does think it's racist and he's shown absolutely no leadership.
Well, sadly, actually, Farage hasn't shown the type of leadership that I would have liked him to show today. Because what he's done is haul Sarah Pochin over the coals, publicly humiliate her at a press conference where I think he should have said she did nothing wrong. Watch.
The words that Sarah Pochin used in response to a caller into talk radio on Saturday morning were without ugly and taken on their own, could be read to be very, very unpleasant indeed. I am unhappy with what she has done. I can't underestimate that, and she fully knows how I feel. However, it was in the broader context of DEI madness in the advertising industry, something which anybody with half a brain can recognise has been going on since about 2021. So I understand the basic point, but the way she put it, the way she worded it, was wrong and was ugly. And if I thought that the intention behind it was racist, then I would have taken a lot more action than I have to date. And that is because I don't.
So Ed Davies said this is racist pure and simple, prompting Lawrence Fox to reply, "We have reached the point where empirical truth is racist now." Yawn. There is a glaring disparity in advertising. Every single ethnic group is overrepresented at the expense of native Brits on television. Read the studies. I understand she is on an apology tour on Nigel's orders, no doubt for speaking the truth. Reform, yet again, adopting the "I'm not mad whilst sat in a straitjacket in a lunatic asylum" approach. I am in a mixed race relationship. You would have thought from watching the telly that everyone else was too. They aren't. Stop apologizing for reality. It gets us nowhere. But I actually think there are so many anti-white racists and race baiters now operating in Parliament. Munira Wilson, I'm going to call her out, the Lib Dem, who wrote, "Wow, racist with a capital R. Is that also how you feel about those of us who are brown or black sitting in Parliament with you?" Of course not. But I do point out, no one on the left called out these two anti-white racists. Watch.
Every chief executive of every council and every government department, white. Every director of a department in Scotland, white. Every principal of a college or university in Scotland, white. Every head teacher in Scotland, white. Every chair of a public sector body in Scotland, white. Every High Court judge in Scotland, white. Every prison governor in Scotland, white. Every editor of a news organisation in Scotland, white. Why? The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every Prison Governor, white. And not just Justice. The Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white.
Because you live in a 94% white country, you fool. Christine Hamilton. I mean, it's Sarah Pochin who's racist, apparently, not that mob.
Honestly, Dan, it is so unbelievable. Talk to your friends, anybody out there who doesn't believe what Sarah has said. Just talk to your friends. Ask them what they see on their television screens. Ask them how many non-white people they see. Ask them whether the average family, whether they're eating crisps or buying donuts or washing up liquid, whatever it is, they're not a representative white family in this country. They are always, she's absolutely right. It's not racist to say the truth. You're showing a whole load of them now. It is not racist. It's an absolute fact. There's hardly an advert that goes out nowadays where they're all white. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And I must say, I entirely agree with you. I thought Nigel Farage's non-defence offer, just throwing her to the wolves to save his own skin, which is not surprising knowing him, was appalling. He did not need to say the first third or quarter of his response. He could have just started out by saying, "It is not racist to state the bleeding obvious."
100%.
That's all she's done.
100%. And Neil, now we're in this extraordinary situation where all of the leftists who have spent the past 5 years campaigning for this ludicrous overrepresentation are now saying, Neil, oh, well, ads aren't actually meant to be a representation of society.
No. I beg your pardon?
Yeah. No, well, it's a case of go woke, go broke, I think. How many people are just looking at the television and say, oh, look, there's another one. It's a game, really. And it's a game that I've seen other people play.
Spot the whitey.
Spot the whitey. And so the ordinary people of the country, the people who have rejected the political class's attempt to shut their opinions out of normal conversation, aren't going to fall for this. Why do we have a result that we got in Caerphilly the other day with reform came from nowhere to nearly 40% of the vote? Why are events like this happening all over the country all the time where the political class is being kicked out of office? It's because ordinary people know that the political class is not representative of them. And what we've got to do is change the whole complement of people who are elected to represent the people until they do represent the people. And I think it was pathetic that Sarah Pochin was forced to apologise for something which required no apology. She explained in that post of hers on Twitter exactly what it was all about. It was perfectly obvious, actually, when you listen to what she actually said in the broadcast, which you showed just a few minutes ago. It's a complete non-issue which has been manufactured by politicised leftist media who just can't face up to the reality of the disaster that is modern Britain.
Breaking today, axed Talk TV presenter Mike Graham is being replaced by his best friend Kevin O'Sullivan as the civil war behind the scenes at the News UK station reaches a new peak. So, as you'd expect, the listeners and the viewers are horrified. They've launched a We Want Mike Graham Back campaign. And of course, because there are the corporate sensibilities and the HR investigations around something like this, Mike's presenter friends, who viewers and listeners believe are his best mates, are unable to say anything. Although when Kevin O'Sullivan did step in, and as I say, I'm told that that is the most likely scenario. He is going to be presenting for the rest of the week. Jeremy Kyle has made clear he doesn't want that breakfast slot. When he did take to the mic this morning, he did mention Mike Graham in a very sort of roundabout manner. Watch.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, standing in for my old friend Mike Graham, and I will be your host for 4 hours of breaking news, challenging views and dynamic debate. Back for the rest of the week. As I say, Mike Graham is still on leave. You know why. We just have to wait, folks. In the meantime...
So I am told there is an ongoing HR investigation where News UK, Rupert Murdoch's company, have said that Mike Graham will have to prove that his phone was hacked if he wants to return to air. Sources connected to the company tell me that Mike Graham has refused to hand over his personal phone. And why should he really? But there is this extraordinary situation. It was very similar, of course, and this is why I feel so strongly about it, to what happened with me and GB News, where Mike Graham's show, Plank of the Week, was also hosted by his BFF Kevin O'Sullivan. Watch.
Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Kevin O'Sullivan.
Hi, welcome to Plank of the Week. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and of course I'm standing in for my good friend Mike Graham. And I've got a hell of a panel for you this week. It is the brilliant Will Geddes, the amazing...
But of course, the viewer boycott continues, and as you can see there, a fraction of the usual audience. Because the problem is, even though the talk presenters might feel like they're unable to say anything and might have their hands tied, the audience never accept this. I saw it with me. And you'll also remember that the decision for Mark Dolan to run so fast to jump on my grave and start hosting my old show was not good for him. The GB News viewers and listeners never forgave him, and he ended up being sacked by station management. But Mark doesn't seem to have learned his lesson here, because he's now facing backlash internally at Talk for openly lobbying for Mike Graham's job. He's done the same thing again with this post on X, where he wrote, in the last 2 weeks, Talk TV Weekend Breakfast has smashed through 4 million digital views. Huge thanks to everyone watching, sharing and commentating. Personally, I put it down to the wardrobe back on air this Saturday and Sunday. Honestly, Dolan, just shut up. Seriously, sometimes just shut up. Do your lobbying behind the scenes. Okay, because right now you've got a station in crisis, its biggest presenter is off air, and the viewers and the listeners have no idea why, have no idea if Mike is ever going to return. And from everything that I'm being told, it is now increasingly unlikely that there is a path back. Of course, why this should really concern Talk management is that the enemies of the station, the absolute enemies, are luxuriating in this. So we're going to get reaction in just one moment from the brilliant Christine and Neil Hamilton. But first I have to show you the biggest enemy who has been celebrating over the weekend, the totally vile Femi Olawale. Watch.
But he's always been a piece of shit. Like, you probably know him as the guy who said you could grow concrete, but I know him as the guy who, when I went into the studio with him to meet him for the very first time in 2018 for a debate over Brexit, he said, the very first thing he said to me was, I'm going to tear you apart. Like, to my face, like an inch away from my face. And then this happened.
What is the single market?
What difference does it make what the single market is?
What is the single market?
I don't know what the single market is. I don't care what the single market is.
There we go.
I don't give a stuff.
You do not know what the single market is. This is the whole. This is the primary term that's been used throughout the entire of this debate, and you don't know what it is. That is the benefit. It's the thing of the EU that provides.
Why don't you tell me what it is then?
All right.
Can you educate all of us what the single market is?
Imagine if you wanted to sell to 28 different countries, including Iran, but those 28 different countries had different laws.
Yeah, imagine that. That all happened before 1973. Yeah. Do you know Bob Geldof said... No, wait a second. Bob Geldof said that the music business...
Yeah,
but I didn't mean it, though. I'm just playing with you, man.
Yeah, and if
I don't actually want you to give me a boring answer. Of course I know what the bloody single market is.
If those countries have different laws, I'd have to manufacture, market, and package my product in 28 different ways.
No, you wouldn't.
That would raise my costs.
Absolute rubbish.
I'd have to pay for the extra...
What a load of nonsense.
I'd have to pay for the extra...
You have become delusional, and it's time for you to have your medication, quite frankly.
I would have to pay for the extra cost of regulatory checks. It would increase my costs. Now, by making laws together, it means anything made in this country is automatically legal across Europe. That makes things cheaper. It makes things cheaper to sell.
So I won't be able to buy a Mercedes anymore. Is that what you're telling me? I won't be able to go to Germany and buy myself a Mercedes or an Audi or a BMW because it'll be too difficult.
You'll be able to, but it will cost more.
You don't know that. Do you think Mercedes are going to deliberately cut their nose off to spite their face and make it more expensive for them to sell their cars?
It's not about them choosing to make it more expensive. It's by the fact that having different laws automatically makes it more expensive.
No, it doesn't. It does not make anything automatic. Do you know what Bob Geldof, your hero...
You literally just admitted to not knowing what the single market is.
Yeah, I was playing with you, man. Do you think I don't know what it means? I've studied economics as well.
It's so well and good to say you know what it means after you've said you don't, and then I explain it to you, and now you know what it means.
And now he's lost his job because he's been exposed as a racist piece of shit, and I could not be happier. And it's important to remember, Talk TV is a racist news channel. Like, they aren't doing this on principle. They just know that there's a line that they can't cross. They can't be that overtly racist. And that line exists because, contrary to popular belief, we are a society that, at the very least, that does not tolerate overt racism, putting people like me on one side of the line and people like Mike Graham on the other. So Mike Graham, I know you've blocked me and have done for years, but if you do see this, know I win.
So Neil Hamilton, the fact that someone like Femi Olawale is so happy about the defenestration of Mike Graham, I think is a reason why people, and certainly why Talk, should want him back. But what's your take on this decision? It all obviously comes from this post that he made on a Sunday night, which many said were racist. He said, compare and contrast, tell me we're not fucked by multicultural bollocks. Why are we surrounded by non-white people? Just fuck off. But he then said the next day that he had indeed been hacked.
Well, obviously, I've got no idea of the truth of that or not. And It's not the language I would have used with the foul-mouthed expletives and so on. And that's why I think it's unlikely that Mike Graham would have used those words too. But the sentiment that was expressed there without the expletives is another commonplace that you'll hear people talking about. 56% of the people who live in London were born outside the United Kingdom. I think that's a pretty dramatic fact of our capital city, that more than half the people who live in London were not born in the United Kingdom, let alone in London. And that is demonstrable just by the photograph that we saw in that caption, and anybody's lived experience is that it's a commonplace. What is controversial about saying it? Absolutely nothing whatsoever. And of course, it's a growing proportion of the population that was not born in the United Kingdom. If you don't think that matters in the capital city of a country, then there's something wrong with you, in my opinion. It's obvious that what we're seeing in this country is actually cultural displacement of our own people. And once ethnic groups reach a certain size as a proportion of the population, as I said earlier on, birds of a feather flock together, and then you end up with a divided rather than a homogeneous society, and where there are tensions which can be blamed on identity rather than on other things which are nothing to do with it, then we'll see the kind of violence and disorder on the streets that we started the programme with. So, these are all statements of the obvious, actually. Why should anybody apologise for a statement of the obvious?
Yeah, I mean, Christine, it's such an interesting one, isn't it? Because as we've seen also with Sarah Pochin over the weekend, and of course, ironically, she made her comments on Talk TV. So the bosses panicked again because it's like, holy shit, now we're caught up in a second racism scandal. But people are so quick to cancel us, right? And we never stand up for each other, and God, I obviously so feel this so strongly because of what I went through at GB News. And, you too, my God, you always stand up for what's right. And you stood up for me every single step of the way. But what I noted, Christine, is so many people didn't because they're scared, oh, am I going to lose my job? Is it bad if I'm associated with this? And I think we're now seeing the same thing with Mike Graham. And it does put the fellow presenters on Talk in a terrible position because there are lots of viewers and listeners who are boycotting and saying, until you own up and tell us what's happening with Mike Graham, we're not going to listen to you.
Well, when I first heard that we were going to be talking about it, we've been away for a week. We've been in Portugal, so we've kind of missed quite a lot of news. We only got back yesterday. So I was a bit worried, were we going to know what you were talking about? So I've, done my research, as it were. And my immediate thought, and you've already picked up on it, was that this is exactly what happened to you with GB News.
Exactly.
Your employers declined to believe you. You were suspended and eventually you were got rid of, and because they preferred to believe somebody else, somebody they didn't know, somebody who was making false accusations about you. Now, I've no idea. The little I know, I don't know Mike Graham apart from having been interviewed by him and been on his programme. I've never met him outside a studio context, so I don't know. But the idea that he would say that and put it out on Twitter, to me, seems totally against everything I know about the guy. And people are saying, oh, well, you, Mike Graham, you tweeted that photograph of Churchill and Big Ben a few minutes before in another tweet, therefore it must have been you. No, if it was hacked, the hackers just immediately took the photograph he used and then attached that rant. I just don't believe he would have used that language. So whether people are, of course people are vying for his job. I mean, that's going to happen in any case. As you say, you saw it happen at GB News when there's a vacancy, people rush to fill it. But I think, I hope he's vindicated. I mean, surely, I don't know enough about these things, but surely you can prove if your account has been hacked. The police would be able to prove it. Surely not. Surely they could. It's not impossible to prove it. So if he's proved to be right, he's owed a massive apology and he's owed his job straight back, whoever else might have jumped into his shoes in the meantime. But if only let's just get this organised, get it properly investigated, get his account looked at and see what the truth is.
But Neil, as is always the case, there's been a big woke takeover, right, of News UK, where I used to work. And there's this really interesting situation going on where, Talk TV is the sister station of Talk Sport. But Talk Sport is the cash cow. It's actually far more important to the News UK business. And Talk Sport has gone very woke. I mean, people might be surprised because obviously we're seeing Alan Brazil on screen there. But, you know, it's really changed since the Black Lives Matter movement. There's been a whole load of new presenters who have been brought in, including this guy called Aid Oladipo. And he went public on this, and he posted, just been sent, he's now deleted this, by the way, but this is what sparked the investigation. He posted this, just been sent that now deleted Instagram post from Mike Graham. I usually hold my tongue with most of the racist nonsense I see on social media, but this is beyond vile and unacceptable from someone in the same building as me, same floor. He simply has to be taken off air immediately by Talk TV. Horrible man. And so this is what's interesting, Neil. This situation with Mike Graham is now being used by Talk Sport, which has for a long time hated the association with Talk TV, for there to be real change.
Well, what's happened to the presumption of innocence in this country in these situations? To be accused is to be convicted nowadays immediately.
100%.
Even a moment's thought. It's a spasmodic reaction, you know, just a knee jerk. And we should really reflect, I think, upon what this is doing to the whole justice system in this country, where individuals can be targeted. If this is an example of cybercrime, because that's what it would amount to, then we should be concentrating on that fact, because what happened to Mike Graham can happen to any of us. If anybody targets you from the far left or wherever, or wants to destabilize the country, whether, you know, we see this with the Russian and Chinese, North Korean, similar regimes that deliberately use their control of technology to try to foment all sorts of problems amongst their perceived enemies. And this can happen in civil society as well. We should really be much, much more aware of how fragile social media interactions are, and can easily be intercepted or hacked and perverted by those who want to destroy individuals who they think are too successful in broadcasting or propagandizing. And I think, again, though, I'll go back to the point that I made earlier on, where it may be that the political class think that by being so morally superior, adopting the high moral tone and hectoring positions that they do, that's going to close down people's opinions. But it isn't, because the public at large, as you say, in relation to Mike Graham's program, are just switching off, and they'll go elsewhere. That's why your new venture, which is the 364th program that we're on today, has been so successful. Is because audiences can easily migrate to the channels.
Well, I think this is a huge opportunity for Mike.
Hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think this is a huge opportunity for Mike. Get out of the mainstream media. It's dying. It's dying. This is maybe an excuse. They may be just using this to get rid of you anyway. You know, so just embrace what this world is, because at the end of the day, you're much, much more powerful on your own. Breaking right now, in the past half hour, King Charles has been heckled outside Lichfield Cathedral over the ongoing and deepening scandal involving his brother, Prince Andrew. It's a dire time for the royal family, and this world exclusive on the front page of The Sun certainly isn't going to help matters. In order to vacate Royal Lodge, Andrew is demanding not only Harry and Meghan's former home, the mansion otherwise known as Frogmore Cottage, but also the current residence of William and Catherine. Not for him, not for his daughters, but for Sarah Ferguson, the non-Duchess who's been divorced from the man for the past 30 years. This is a joke, and as I've said for some time, I really do believe that Prince William is right here when he says there has to be an act of parliament, not just to strip Fergie and Andrew and Beatrice and Eugenie, but to strip Harry and Meghan and their two little blighters too. But as I say, I haven't watched this yet. I want to look at the Sky News coverage, because I knew this was going to happen. The Republican movement, the hard leftists are using this crisis in the royal family, are using Charles's health travails, and are using the fact that he's not taking a strong enough stance to try and put the Republican debate on the table. So as I say, this is King Charles during a visit to Lichfield Cathedral in the past half hour. Let's listen and see what happened. I'm watching this at the same time as you.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew? What do you think? Should the MPs be allowed to debate the lawyers in the House of Commons?
So there, one person at least in the crowd talking about the Epstein case and the police, and also Prince Andrew, and evidence, if it were needed, for the King of how this issue is very high in the public mind. And I wonder if we could just listen again to what has just been shouted to the King. Can we? We can't. But I mean, the King is clearly under pressure to do more. And let's just have a listen again.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew? What do you think? Should the MPs be allowed to debate the lawyers in the House of Commons?
Okay, so we get the picture there. Tennille and Christine Hamilton. Christine, look, I always knew that this was going to be the consequence, that the Republican movement was going to be absolutely emboldened by this. And indeed, in the past hour, Republic have effectively claimed credit for this ambush of the King, writing, "We won't back down. The British public won't back down. Charles is complicit in covering up accusations against Andrew, who needs to be held to account." As a monarchist and as a royalist like me, Christine, this is a deepening crisis, and it really does feel like Charles has to get a better handle on this.
Oh, I think he does. And if he gives in and gives Andrew a house and Fergie a house, I mean, you know, royalists like me will be revolted by that. I'm sorry, but they've been divorced for 30 years. They've got plenty of money between them. Plenty of divorced couples have to find two places to live. Just, you know, he can have a house, okay, because he's still a royal prince. But the idea that we, the taxpayer or the King, should provide his divorced wife of 30 years, who was also very closely involved with Epstein, let's not forget her appalling emails, with a house. I mean, what? It's just mind-boggling. But I do, I hate to say this, and it pains me to say it, but I do feel that our deeply beloved late Queen did spoil Andrew, and I think possibly her indulgence of him encouraged his sense of entitlement. And that's what he is. He's a pretty thicko, dumb, but also has this hugely exaggerated sense of entitlement. And he now clearly thinks that he's entitled to a house and his ex-wife of 30 years is entitled to a house. Well, come off it. He can exchange one house for another house, full stop, leave it at that. And then please go away. I mean, why doesn't he go and live in the castle of May, where we would never have to see him again? All the way up there. He can watch all his videos.
He said he doesn't want to be cold. Neil, do you think that the monarchy is genuinely under threat because of this scandal?
No, I don't. I think this is certainly a bit of a sideshow. But the trouble is, it keeps going on and on and on. And if there's any truth in this claim that Andrew is angling for two residences, whatever size they are, it's just going to keep the story bubbling along. Has he got absolutely zero judgment whatsoever about how this?
Well, I mean, we know that. We know that he doesn't. Look, let me just take you through the key details of the story, Neil, before I get you to go on, because it is just worth looking at this report from The Sun in just a little bit more detail. So they report Prince Andrew and ex-wife Sarah Ferguson have agreed to leave Royal Lodge, but want 2 homes in return. Andy demanded Harry and Meghan's ex-Windsor pad Frogmore Cottage and exit talks with palace bosses. Fergie is lining up nearby Adelaide Cottage after William and Kate leave next month. A friend of the pair said no one is really sure how it's going to go down at the palace yet. He is realistic and knows the writing is on the wall and that his time at Royal Lodge is up. William and Kate are due to leave Adelaide Cottage next month. Neither house would need renovations or cost taxpayers more on security as they lie within the Windsor Castle security perimeter. Talks are said to be continuing on how much rent Andrew and Fergie would be charged. The friend added Andy is willing to leave, but these are his demands. I mean, Neil, to me, I just don't think this solves the problem, does it? It's like they're still effectively grace and favour mansions paid for by the taxpayer and the royal family. I don't see how it's any better that he's in two houses within the Windsor estate than just staying put in Royal Lodge.
Well, I don't think it'll be paid for by the taxpayer because the houses will be owned by the Crown Estate, which is, like a trust, and the trustees have legal obligations not to deplete the assets of the trust. So they couldn't just give him a grace and favour residence. Somebody would have to pay the market rent.
Well, he's paying a peppercorn a year at the moment, so we know the types of arrangements that come. But yes, I hear your point.
Yeah, but I mean that's because all the value in whatever arrangement he's got on Royal Lodge at the minute is in the lease premium, not in a ground rent. That happens pretty regularly in leasehold arrangements. So I don't think there's anything very much in that particular point. My guess is that what he's angling for here is for the king to pay his rent. If I don't know what resources Andrew has got, we're not privy to his personal finances. And we know that he got the Queen to stump up 12 million quid for that payoff over the allegations were made against him by that girl whose name I can't now remember. But
sorry, Virginia Giuffre.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it was her, wasn't it? So presumably he doesn't have a very deep pocket to dip into for the scale of his aspirations on how to live. But given that he isn't actually going to be going anywhere very much out in public, then I don't suppose he's got to have any image of himself to keep up in terms of grandeur. So why doesn't he just pipe down and put up with the result of what's happened, which is all due to his spectacular failures of judgment going back for many, many years.
I know, but Neil, what about this Act of Parliament, though, that William wants? Surely that's actually what's required here, because do it all, Neil, in one fell swoop. Deal with Andrew and Fergie once and for all, but also deal with the Harry, Meghan, Archie, Lily problem, because trust me, that is an unexploded bomb, which William doesn't want to have to deal with. Why on earth should they be pimping out the royal family and the HRH title and the Duke and Duchess title to sell dodgy products? And also, they've had loads of dodgy relations with people. Like, basically, Harry and Meghan are what Andrew and Fergie were 30 years ago. Do you see what I mean? Just deal with this once and for all. There can be a letters patent. It can all be done. And you just strip them of the HRH status, the princely type. Just do it all. Because otherwise you're delaying the inevitable, because trust me, William's going to do that when he becomes king, whenever that happens to be.
It wouldn't require any legislation to strip either of them of honorific titles like HRH or even a prince, because all it requires is new letters patent for the king to sign. You would have to have an Act of Parliament to deprive Andrew and Harry of their dukedoms, because the titles are what's called an incorporeal hereditament in property law. And that is they're a property interest which can't be removed except by legislation. So, but do we really want to use parliamentary time on something which ultimately is pretty trivial? Two individuals who are no longer involved in public life as far as.
But it's the Harry and Meghan issue for me, Neil. That's what the issue is, because they are, I believe, more of a threat, actually. But you can do it all at once. And what you can say is that we're doing this because William is preparing for a slimmed down monarchy, and this is not personal. It's not a personal slight about any of these individuals, but it's something that is responsible for the type of monarchy that we want. And do you see what I mean? Then it feels less personal against any of them.
Well, obviously, you know that I'm no defender of the Californian grifters. I'm not really a defender of Prince Andrew either. But I'm in two minds over it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Christine, you wanted to come in.
Point you make, but on the other hand, do we really want to magnify the importance of this in reality?
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
And empower the Republicans. No, I agree. Christine, sorry, you wanted to come in.
Well, I don't think it's worth spending parliamentary time on it. Just tell them you cannot use these titles, full stop. And if you do, obviously you can't stop them unless you have a law about it. But and I would strip the kids of all these ridiculous titles. Why should whatever they're called in Monty Shito be called Prince and Princess? And for heaven's sake, they're
never here.
They're nothing to do with the royal family any longer. They're just little whatever they are. Beatrice and Eugenie, I do feel sorry for them. Obviously, they've had a lot of privilege and entitlement, and they've had a lot of fun, etc., and benefited hugely because of who their parents were. But it must be just hideous for them. There was a slight movement because the royal family is getting a little bit too slimmed down, and there aren't enough people to go around to bring them into the fold, and it was thought that they could. Because they're very personable young women, they really are. They're a very delightful pair of girls. But obviously that's now absolutely off the counter because every time they appear, every time there's a photograph or anything of them, it will be mentioned that it's Andrew. By the way, this whole programme has driven me to drink. I know we started at 5 o'clock, but we have just had an hour change. So by the time we got to nearly 5 o'clock when we signed on, honestly, I needed it.
Yeah, Christine's still on summertime.
So depressing. It is so depressing.
I know. Honestly, it is. Well, can I depress you further, Christine?
Oh,
Harry and Meghan have released this bizarre new video today. I don't know if you've seen this, Christine, but this is of their Halloween celebrations. But look, it's so creepy, Christine. It's all taken from behind the kids' faces, and there's no one else there. So they've clearly cleared out this entire pumpkin patch to allow their two imprisoned children who never seem to leave the Montecito mansion. And I just thought, this is odd. That's meant to convince us that Harry and Meghan are happy. Have you ever seen a couple holding hands be more distant, Christine?
I don't. And honestly, she's always... I have a thing against black, I'm afraid. I don't own a single piece of
racist.
Black.
She's not doing a Sarah Pochin, Neil.
I am talking about clothes and to see people sort of dressed entirely...
Oh, that's what you say now.
Yeah. Shut up. This is Halloween. It's also, I suppose, Halloween black, and it goes with Halloween. I don't know. But is that really little, whatever her name is, Lilibet? Because I thought
are we meant to believe it? We never see her face.
She had very red hair to start with.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's Meghan being normal. Look, pulling a cart with pumpkins. It's just them being a normal, happy family. Honestly, Dan, really, they're just being a happy family.
I think Meghan looks better in a pointed hat.
She's our very own royal wicked witch. Neil Hamilton, Christine Hamilton, I adore you both. Thank you so much. Great to have you back from your holiday.
Thank you for cheering me up. Oh, gosh.
Sorry about that. I hope I haven't driven anyone else to drink tonight. Neil and Christine, love you both. Thank you. And we're going to reveal today's greatest Britain Union jackass in just one moment. First, your feedback, though. Kath Lissington says, 20 years ago, when I was saying this was coming, this is in regards to the idea of an Islamist civil war on the streets of the UK, everyone said I was mental. Those people are not laughing now. Phoebe Watts says, sadly, we have already been taken over. There is more of them now than us. Starmer is bringing them all here. It's a disgrace. Helen Nod on the rape gang inquiry says, Rupert Lowe tried to tell you that back in January, Nigel Farage. You didn't want to know and came down on him instead. And James Faircloth 5469 says, I'm glad my granddad, who fought in the war, is not alive now. It's bloody disgusting what is happening here in Britain. And a reminder of your nominees for today's Union Jackass, the worst Britain in the world today. Lucy Powell, nominated by Thomas W3033 after she was sacked but then brought back as the deputy leader of the Labour Party. David Lammy, nominated by Kaz Quinn, about that weekend game of Where's Kabuto? And Where's Streety, nominated by Darren Donaldson for going for Sarah Pochin and claiming that she is racist simply for stating facts. Okay, this was a close one between the three Labour big beasts. Well, actually, not really, but between the second and third position. Where's Streety in third place with 18%, the runner-up Lucy Powell with 25%, but actually the overwhelming winner, David Lammy, with 57%, as Robert Jenrick called him in the House of Commons today, Calamity Lammy. And the Greatest Britain winner today, nominated by Protect Rights 99, is Graham Linehan, because he speaks for all of us. Now we're moving over to Substack now for the uncancelled after show, where we are teaming up with the Royal News Network. Oh my goodness. And former staff member of Meghan Markle has revealed why she is the boss from hell. Fascinating details, including midnight meltdowns and red carpet rages. So we're going to bring you all of that over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. I will be back with you, though, tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday. Oh, no, it's not. I think it's 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm so sorry. This daylight saving thing gets me so confused. You know that. Let me just check. I'm just going to check. What time is it right now? Los Angeles, 11:26. Right now, New York, 2:26. So, yeah, it's 1 p.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Pacific time, midday Central time, just for this week. Why do they not coordinate the clocks? Seriously, it drives me insane, but it is 5 p.m. UK time. Hit subscribe right now on YouTube and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our new episode. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.